what is the purpose of slavery? It's really to unite the people unite somebody seeking food and shelter with somebody seeking labour. I know we have this thing called employment and employee, but that's a less comprehensive contract, because if you're a slave, then really your status is considerably lower than that of somebody being an employee. But what is the purpose of slavery? It has a social purpose, because it allows people to be off the streets, not starving and dying of exposure in the streets. It unites somebody in need of food and shelter with somebody in need of labour. And it's a transaction, and a socially useful one when you think of the terrible waste of talent and energy of the welfare state. So although a lot of people are hooked on the welfare state, the fact is there's a lot of, I was going to say surplus value, which makes me sound like a communist, but really I'm saying, well, spare capacity, that's a word I was looking for. So you have, these people who really could be doing all kinds of work, but nobody wants them to work because there seems to be enough money to, keep them not working. But that is in itself bad, because it'll create, more people who aren't working, and it's also demoralising for those concerned if they feel silly looking for work because they've already got money coming in for free. Or they could be the very enterprising type to claim benefit and work and run a business and that sort of thing. But the most useful purpose of slavery would be to function as the most effective kind of workfare. You may have heard of workfare, which is people basically entitled to benefit but being made to work for it. And this is a term that came from America. And why did they abandon it? They abandoned it because it was just too labour intensive to supervise, and it was decided that it was just cheaper to just pay the person to sit at home and do whatever he wanted, rather than pay somebody to supervise him. And that was one of the reasons why the workhouse came to an end. Because if you did study it, as I did, there was a principle of lesser eligibility, and so it meant that the workhouse had the principle of being made more uncomfortable than it would be for the person if he had not had to come into the workhouse. They made a point of making it less comfortable than if the poor person in need of food and shelter had to be, the whole idea is to say, look, you're not going to get an easy pass. You're not going to, be made more comfortable coming here, claiming welfare, than if you stayed outside well, stayed in your own home and made do with whatever you could. And because of this principle, conditions were made uncomfortable deliberately. I mean, obviously it made sense for families to be segregated. Sorry, for men and women to be segregated, and this meant families had to be segregated. And, well, obviously that was very cruel, but that was done as a matter of course, and it was, a part of the whole idea of telling them, look, mate, you can't come in here expecting to be made more comfortable than you would be if you stayed being poor in your own home. But obviously this caused a lot of cruelty, and it was actually quite hard to supervise, and everybody hated it, and eventually it was decided that it was easier to pay them. But the workhouse was a form of workfare, but obviously very difficult to supervise in large numbers, even with the best Victorian will in the world. So what would be more efficient is if the slave with his or her particular skills could be matched with the hirer of a slave. So what I'm saying is that if it were to be introduced, I would have a quite new principle of operation, in that the property in the slave, i.e. the person, the thing that owned the slave, wouldn't be the person hiring it, it would be the state hiring the slave. And this meant that the slave wouldn't be abused, or is less likely to be abused, because the government would have an interest in not having its property damaged, and so it would have to send visitors of slaves to see if the slave was, not being damaged, government property wasn't being damaged, and of course also to see if the slave is working properly. It was, for the benefit of the slave and the hirer of slave, to see if, things are working out. And obviously this would make the economy a whole lot more efficient, in that, there won't be lots of people, sitting at home wanking to porn, watching daytime TV, eating themselves fat, and all that sort of thing. So there's every argument for it, and also the whole problem of immigration would end, because okay, I was looking at Gab, and because of the murder of David Amos, there's the usual post saying Muslims and their Muslim issues, there they go, being terrorists again, and why are they here? Why don't they? The usual kind of thinking that one has to expect. So, and why are they here? They are being invited, in fact, directly or indirectly. So, and they are, in a way, cheap labour, they're not officially slaves. I mean, freeborn people complain often that, they're just wage slaves. Perhaps, that's a lot of most people who hate their jobs, but know they have to go to work because they have, bills to pay and family to feed, and, and maybe, well, that's most people, right? So unless you really enjoy what you do and you happen to be in the field of work there where you are working and which you enjoy, then most people would, really rather not be at work. And that is why most of us should, well, all of us should try and find out what we like doing best, and hopefully find a career that is doing precisely that. In the previous video that I messed up, I was dealing with Christine Ramsey's suggestion that I might like to be a slave myself, and I'm actually quite prepared to go through with it in a drama documentary kind of way, I guess, because I often wonder how much I would fetch as a slave, and whether I would fetch maybe a little more than Christine Ramsey. But then it would depend on, what purpose that I would be put to. An editor of a national newspaper would be quite nice. A slave director of BBC Light Entertainment, that would be a lot of fun. A slave copy editor, a slave creative talent in an advertising agency. I think it would make the most sense. If you're going to enslave somebody, it's not, it's just silly to think that they'll just be picking cotton or something. Obviously, if you're going to make the most of your slave, you will be choosing your slave for the purpose, the maximum value of it. It's not, you don't want to just torture them and whip them for no good reason, and they won't work properly if you whip them, because they'll be hurt and they'll be limping and they'll be moaning and whinging and being really annoying. So you have to treat them properly, in the same way that you buy yourself a new washing machine. You don't kick it in the ghoulies, do you? No, you don't. You treat it nicely and make sure it's got a safe working environment, and stored in the right temperature, and whatever. So slavery would be the most effective way of absorbing the people who actually aren't in a position to feed and accommodate themselves. So they have to be accommodated by other people who, have a spare room, or as Harry Potter had, and he stepped under the room under the stairs, didn't he? So, maybe something like that could be arranged for, the kind of little house slave, to be a mini butler, or, mini maid or something. So these things are possible, and it would actually stop all these immigrants coming in, because you'd say, no, we don't want you. We've got enough. Labour in our own country. Thank you very much. You can, stay in your own country, and we won't bomb it anymore. And you'll be happier in your unbombed country that Western imperialists will cease to bomb, and people will get along much better. So, and this is okay by secular Quranism. Now, the other thing I wanted to explain was sex slaves. I know people will just think, because they're completely sex obsessed, they'll be thinking of, that particular kind of slave. and how that would work. So I'll have to explain to you that, okay, you've got this girl, and you've got to ask her if she wants to be a prostitute or not. And if she doesn't want to be a prostitute, you can't force her to be a prostitute. But if she says, all right then you can put her to work, but only if you own a licensed brothel, and you won't get a license unless you're a person of, well, reasonably good character. You don't cheat people. You don't have shady business practices, and you're known to be a good employee. So only such a person can operate a brothel, and only enslaved girls would work in such an establishment. They wouldn't be made into streetwalkers with pimps and that kind of thing. No. It'll all be quite respectable. There might even be state brothels, I don't know. So the slack of people not working would be tightened up considerably, and I think that would be an advantage, because I think people want the dignity of work, even if it's slave work. And I don't see why slavery wouldn't be would be the end of the world, because you could have, I don't know, assess slavery. I mean, there'll be CVs and kind of, what's the word, references. I mean, slaves also need references, and they would always have one master, because the government will have the right to send them hither and thither as and when required. I mean, you could be a nanny slave, and obviously it'd probably be quite easy for a nanny slave to stay in what area. But if you were a fisherman slave, then you could be sent to all kinds of seas or whatever. I mean, there's lots of possibilities. I suppose you could be. Could you be a spaceman slave? I think we could get quite creative about the whole thing. But the thing about slavery is that it would be using up the indigenous labour in a comprehensive way, because the people who keep complaining about immigrants are basically white indigenous people who haven't worked in generations, who have been illegitimate for generations, and they have a poverty of aspiration and an expectation that perhaps slavery, with its opportunities, could, improve their prospects. I suppose the other thing that we have to think about as regards slaves is whether they can marry, and the answer must be no until they are free, until they have manumitted themselves. So, under the system, there would be a Department of Work, pensions and manumissions, and if you were a slave, you would have a kind of account. So the government would hire you out, and your employer, the hirer of slave, would pay you according to whatever the slave rate is going, and it would be credited to your account, and your account would be added up until the sum that is required for your manumission is accrued and then discharged, and then you probably want to save a bit more, because obviously you can't come out potless. So you'd have to save up for the deposit for a flat or whatever, and this would be how it would work. I think that will be all right, and I would be prepared to submit myself to such a regime, just to, understand all these different regimes, I suppose. I'm full of ideas. I could be, the slave national intellectual, slave YouTuber, a slave photographer, a slave political activist. That does sound a bit like, is it Klaus Schwab, who said you own nothing but you'll be happy. And I suppose it's possible to be happy if you're a slave and you're happy to do your work, and you're the hirer of your slave, and the owner of you are benevolent and generous and considerate and kind. Hello, Nacho Big Mouth. Yeah, Nacho Big Mouth. I'm saying basically, if you're potless, if you lost your home, you would need shelter and food, and the only way you can do that is as a slave, because the hirer of a slave would obviously have to accommodate you and shelter you and feed you. Nacho Big Mouth, I have explained about manumissions. The idea of my system is for it to be humane, and obviously, something that I myself would, think is fair enough. Nacho Big Mouth, yes, you're right. We are all slaves in a way, because that's something I've touched on in a previous stream, because I was talking about whether we are. I mean, if God exists, are we the slaves of God? And I mean, I know that Muslims and Jews consider themselves, or certainly the more pious of them, consider themselves the slaves of God. And I wondered to what extent it was true. And I thought it probably is completely true, in the sense that we are already told what, whom we can have sex with under the no-height laws and the Quran and all that. It does have quite definite ideas about whom we can or can't have sex with. So if our body's not our own, then I guess, if we obey, these laws, then we would be technically the slaves of God, telling us not to, to have sex with, this or that forbidden person. Talking about an internship. Well, I think, okay, I mean, it doesn't have to be improving. Obviously, it's not a good... You always made a mistake, if you ended up being a slave, because, you must have got yourself bankrupt or something. So, obviously that's not good, but I think slaves should have a kind of record, like, was she a good slave or a bad slave? Does a slave show, initiative and enthusiasm, or, did you have to, did you struggle to wake them up in the morning, and that kind of thing? So, Are you back? Um, yeah, so these are considerations that will become important, if you want to, it's like, okay, you did this terrible thing, you ended up being a slave, but, did you take it with good grace, or, were you just a terrible slave, you were sort of, you thought you were far too good to be a slave, and you were a snooty slave, and you thought you were better than the people who hired you, and then you were kind of, and then they get so annoyed with you, they call the government and say, we don't want this slave, can you take it back and, give us a better one? And, all these things can happen in theory under my slavery regime. Thank you for telling us, sharing this piece of information about yourself. Now, Joe, I don't see how his being gay made you a slave. Indentured labour, that's one of the expressions used. I rather like the idea of being a slave YouTuber. What job do you think I would be good at? I think I'd be good at producing content for YouTube, wouldn't I? I'd be a good political activist. I could be a great slave promoter of secular Quranism. Slave college professor. Very liberal. Yes, that'd be quite good. Do you have time to come and join me, Nacho? I know you wanted to join me yesterday, but I couldn't. Well, I couldn't read the chat properly. So, if you have time, it'd be lovely to hear from you. And we talk more about slavery and your very interesting life. If you'd like to join me, that'd be nice. "30 minutes would be perfect." So I'm basically saying, I do have radical ideas: one-party theocracy, reintroduction of slavery, flat rate income tax of 20%, the banning of usury, defaulting on usurious loans, the corporal punishment of unmarried parents, the return of corporal punishment for other offences, as well as the return of the death penalty. And of course the restoration of the patriarchy. But I think it would work. I think it would put the West back on an even keel. Did anyone listen to my stream with Vincent? That was a fascinating stream. I wasn't even planning to stream, but it was great. Hi, Tiffany.
Hi there, how are you?
I'm very well. So you're not Joe, are you?
Yes, that is not my main account, obviously. My main has been, unfortunately, flagged down by people who disagree with me. So I'm in a short period of suspension. So I've been using my more trolley account.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, that's not my yeah, not Joe Big Mouth. That's more of my fun account, but in the meantime, that's the one I'm using. So
Oh, great.
nice to meet you.
Yeah, it's great to meet you. I've come across you before, but not very often. That's why I'm a bit vague. But you know Domingo and you
Yes.
and yes, yes.
Yes, I've shared with Domingo in the past that you have some views that I agree strongly with. Some of them I don't, but I do believe that society under the matriarchy is not working out well, and I believe in having, a strong family that where I'm basically your anti-feminist, right? I don't agree with most of the feminist movement. I think it was toxic to a degree. I think naturally and genetically we have uh, a sort of order within men and women. I my beliefs kind of fall in line with that. Now, as far as how this all translate over into Islam and all that, I'm not versed enough to on Islam to speak intelligently about it, but um, as far as how things are going now, I don't think they're working, right? Um,
What do you think is the problem? Why do you think it's?
I think the problem is that we have lost our values as people within society and culture, and we have been pushing the envelope. Basically, we've pushed it off the cliff now with what we are forced to believe is acceptable. I think that forcing sexual fetishes onto people as being genders is wrong. I think that the destruction of the family unit within the Western cultures is wrong. I think that we have lost sight with our morals and our principles. We're not raising our children properly. I think a lot of this just to simplify it boils down to a lack of character and direction in people. I think we're really lost. Um,
Mm.
as a Western civilization. We've lost the plot. We've taken God out of a lot of things, um, and we have. I don't believe in the two-party system, so I don't like to blame liberals or conservatives. Or I think it's just all a
Yeah,
control
yeah. So
method.
you
But
agree with me about a one-party state? Yay.
yeah, I do. Yes, I do. Absolutely.
Are you?
I feel like the whole Republican Democrat that whole thing I feel like that's actually kind of replacing religion, right? As far as
Yeah, yeah.
how
But I
people.
think that's basically what happened. I mean, liberalism basically replaced Christianity because I noticed
Mhm.
a historian, a British historian called Tom Holland, and he was basically, Christianity is liberalism, liberalism is Christianity, and I thought, well, it wasn't always like that, but he
I
was
know.
talking. Um, so obviously, liberalism replaced Christianity, and then liberalism is now beginning to fail, and I think all these ideas are sacred cows to many people,
Mhm.
and I guess they can't face it at the moment.
Well, I think it's because we've compartmentalized people into so many little groups, right? And so many little special little pockets of life. You have all these special classes of people and all this stuff. And it's like, it's so confusing. And I just don't think any of it's right. I don't think we should be forced to accept things that are um, not acceptable, in my opinion. We should be forcing these things onto our children. I get really upset with the whole uh, the way we've taken femininity and we're trying to make it masculine and powerful. And women. we are built with a certain skill set, right? We're built with a certain set of emotional tools that we have and way
And the
of
men
thinking that
hate
makes
it
us,
anyway. They ma-
yeah,
they
yeah,
hate it. So why? I really think it's the opposite sex that has the right to say, we want, our men to be like, whatever, and the men will say we want our women to be like, whatever they want. You know, it's I don't think it's
right.
even up to us.
Right, that's true. That's true. But I feel like men are being oppressed in a way from their natural desire towards aggression. And when I say aggression, I don't necessarily mean violence. I mean more of that natural rooted aggression that men have that make them competitive, that gives them motivation, that makes them protective of their families
Mm,
and
mm,
loyal to their families. There's a really extended period of adolescence now for men. That's just been getting worse, and men are living at home for a really long time.
yeah.
Um, it's just
It's
we're really trying.
co-education. I think co-education has been so, well,
Hmm.
feminizing for men and
Yeah,
corrupting
that
as
has.
well.
Yeah, that has.
And
We have all
it's,
these
it's like
men.
this goes completely against American high school culture, right? It's
Yeah,
like it's completely unheard of. But I think that's where they have to go if they want to return to civilization.
yeah. Well, yeah, it's so messed up, it's complicated. And I think, the only thing possible now, not to, poo-poo on your parade or what you're trying to preach, but I think that the biggest thing, because there's a lot of people who are talking, there's not a lot of people who take action. You have a lot of showboaters and people who like to posture about their ideas and things, and they don't do too much about it. Now, I think the best approach we have is to raise our children properly. So hopefully to see the better, culture and civilization in the future, and hope that that would grow. But everything's just kind of broken. It's unfortunate. I'm 41, and I can say when I was growing up, I feel like there was still a good sense of family and value and ability to have a family and have your community be supportive of it and have your faith in your religion and what you do in your activities. And it was pretty wholesome still. I feel, things really have gotten broken in the past 20 years, the past couple decades. It's just really gone downhill. Um,
Yeah, and the worsening is accelerating
yes,
for
it
all
is.
sorts of obvious reasons, and
The
I don't think
acceleration is scary, isn't it, Claire? The acceleration of this is pretty, I mean,
yeah.
it's pretty out of control.
And I really, I mean, it's such a pity because it's like, I think, okay, I think I know what the problem is, but nobody will talk
Hmm.
about it because it's taboo, it's a sacred cow, you can't say this, you can't say that. And
Right.
if you say it, you're faced with, incomprehension, and then, um, well, just people ignoring you or not, whatever.
Well, people are afraid to face what they don't understand, and people are afraid to burst their little bubbles that they live in and think for a second that maybe we've been doing this wrong and we have to change. Change scares people. Everybody wants to live in their little world where everything is consistent and they know what's coming. And unfortunately, a lot of people too, I think we have a massive problem with, I hate using this word, so I apologize, but a massive amount of narcissism that's really growing. And people don't like to have that ability to listen and think and have personal growth and say, hey, maybe I was wrong about my views on this. They're so married to their opinions and their way of life. And it's like they feel like they could die if they say, maybe I was wrong about this and I've got to change things up. Nobody likes to admit they're wrong anymore. And it's unfortunate because when you have a bunch of people acting the way they are now, who are unwilling to look inward, it's hard to fix, you know? I
Yeah, and
think,
the pills that they take that seem to take away their ability to self reflect, or
Mhm.
the psychotropic drugs, you know,
Yeah.
and mood enhancers, and it's like, yeah, maybe you need to feel a bit bad about what you've done or what happened to you. And
Right? That's a that is a very that's a very good point. Maybe everybody does need to feel a little bit of shame, a little bit of pain, a little bit of emotion.
mm,
Imagine that, right?
yeah.
Not any.
That is also part of the problem of not believing in God, because if you
Yeah,
do, even theoretically, even if you're not sure, you sort of think, well, if God exists, then well he'd have a view on it, and won't um, and then you would get used to the idea that there is something above you, rather than you using your wits to get away with murder.
right. Well, you have there's a level of accountability when you have faith. There's a level of responsibility to your faith. You have a lot of factors that come with being a faithful person that that make good people,
Well, you'd
people
have
of faith and
principles. You'd have
there's
religious
principles, there's
principles.
direction. Yeah, there's support. You have support. There's a lot of good things that come with being a faithful person. Regardless of what your religion really even is,
Because you'd
having
have
that.
a kind of group identity. You'd be
Uh-huh.
with the people who see the world as you do. And,
Right.
and, and then
Right.
you'd be reinforcing each other's views by living as a
Right.
community and seeing each other.
Right, right. And then there's that level of personal accountability that you have to your religion to where, it will dissuade you from making, hopefully it would, from making bad choices, right? Or making bad decisions or doing bad things. Because of your accountability to your God, to your community within your religion, to your family. It seems like that seems to me to be the biggest problem that we have. The whole accountability thing. They're decriminalizing so much. I live in Southern California, and in the past 5, 6 years, we have decriminalized so many offenses, right?
Like is what stealing anything under the value of $900 is okay, something like
Yeah,
that.
pretty much. I mean, you have people who go into retail stores now, and they will literally just grab armfuls of goods and run out the door, and
It's
the cops don't
crazy.
do anything. Yeah, it's absolutely insanity. You can be on your persons, you can have an extraordinary amount of drugs and be pulled over and not be arrested. Um, it's a broken system, and we've really coddled the bad people and kind of pushed the good ones aside. Nobody wants to offend anyone anymore, or they've even changed the names, Claire, of certain crimes because they don't want to offend people. I believe I can't remember off the top of my head, but it was so absurd the way they renamed crimes because the criminal might be offended. It's like, are you kidding me? It's so energy put into things that don't matter is
Like
just
what?
exhausting.
Can you remember just one to give an
Oh gosh,
example?
let me get on my laptop and I'll look it up really fast. It was pretty funny. This was a few years ago. Um, Hold on, I gotta search it because I can't off the top of my head, but we'll find it.
Hmm.
We'll find it. This started in San Francisco, um, a few years back, where they started changing the names of certain criminal offenses. Let's see here if I can pull it up. Uh, and I don't think your slavery idea is all that. I don't know if that's you may want to rebrand it something a little bit more fuzzy and loving. Slave might be hard for people to digest, but I do see, I wouldn't mind being a slave to the proper slave owner, handsome and wealthy and
Yes, the food's okay. The roof doesn't
yeah,
leak.
good cook. If he just needs a buddy, I'll be a buddy slave. How about that? Okay, San Francisco changing names of. All right, let's see what we got here. Oh yeah, here's what they. This is funny. So they rebranded I misspoke a little bit. They rebranded the name of calling somebody a convicted felon, right? To a justice involved person.
No, just it's
And they
just
did this. They did this too because wait, let's see what the let's find the real reason here. There's got to be a root cause. A juvenile delinquent is now called a young person with justice system involvement, or a young person impacted by the juvenile justice system, because God forbid we call them what they are. Uh, and they did this because they did not want to dampen the spirits and oh, wait, hold on. We don't want people to be forever labeled for the worst things that they have done. We want them ultimately to become contributing citizens, and referring to them as felons is like a scarlet letter that they can never get away from.
crazy.
It's nuts, right? Justice
Well, I mean,
involved
in the
individual.
UK, there is this thing called, you have these criminal offences that you might have committed, but they get spent. You don't have to declare them anymore. But
Well, and you have a different way of classifying crimes too. So your crimes are more so they're grouped together, I believe, right? And then they have like a letter or an indicator of how severe it was. But there's not too many specific, like out here, every crime is labeled and numbered and individualized. And I happened to see somebody's criminal record from the UK, and looked like it wasn't that bad, but apparently they just use certain
different words,
categories.
right?
Yeah. 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 So justice involved individuals. There you go.
Well, it's a bit of a
We do not,
mouthful. It doesn't trip off the tongue easily.
no,
It's a,
convicted felon just flies right out. It's very easy to say.
exactly. Everybody knows what it means.
Right. There's no question about this person's past. You are a convicted felon. Okay. Nice to meet you. Go away. No. Yeah, even the criminals take offense now. Isn't that funny?
But whose idea was it? I mean, this is a crazy thing that to keep muddying the waters until nobody knows what the hell anything is anymore. I mean, the impression I get is that you can ask a question and the answer is always maybe. I'm not
Yeah.
surprised that so many people have mental health issues if that's the case. You'd be paralyzed by indecision.
Well, I mean, if every one of us in this world went to a doctor today, I think we could get a 90% diagnosis rate of mental health disorders, depending probably on the location, but for at least out here we would. The idea of this idea came from well, not this wasn't Southern, but this came from California liberals, the liberal party, or the liberal way of mind in California as a whole is very fluffy. They are very laser focused um, on social status and relieving people from social judgment, and it's very bizarre, Claire. It's really it's a different way to live in certain areas. Fortunately, most of these big pockets of people are just in the major cities. It doesn't really spill over into the suburbs and things like that very much. But yeah, these are California liberals who have these great ideas, and they vote on them, you know?
Yeah, because
Mm.
I was thinking, part of my secular Quranism idea was, people do tend to say a few, the same old list of accusations against it. Oh, you just want us to dress like Arabs. It'll be horrible. They'll be in bin bags and the culture will be the same. And I said, no, no, it won't be the same, because if you imagine that every American state could interpret the Quran in its own way, then I think any American would know that a Maine interpretation would be different from the Californian interpretation, which would be different.
Oh yeah. 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 It would be way different out here. Yeah, no, I understand what you're saying. I don't know. I studied a little bit about Islam years ago. I fed into some of the fear mongering that was going on. I was very new to the craziness of YouTube, I guess you could say. And I didn't really understand, um, excuse me one second, I have a Pomeranian who's losing his mind right now. I didn't really understand the whole, there's a lot of Islamophobe going on. I don't really like using that word. Hold on, bear with me one second. Teddy, no, 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 stop it. There's nobody there. He's a good watchdog, but
No.
he tends to watch things that aren't there, which is the problem.
My great
uh,
aunt had a Pomeranian, and my aunt did too. I'm just trying to
they're
remember
funny
their
little.
names. One of them was called Lenny.
Oh, yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is Teddy, and Teddy's not listening. And so anyway, so I bought into a lot of the fear that came along with the whole idea of Islam. And you know how I resolved that. I actually had a mother at my son's school who was she would show up to school in her headscarf and everything every day. And she didn't really talk to anybody. She kind of stood alone by herself. And I always felt kind of bad. It wasn't that she was standoffish, it's just nobody really spoke to her. So I went up to her one day and I said to her, I said, I'd like to ask you some questions about your religion. I'm really curious um, about some things because I feel a little bit ignorant and
Mm-hmm.
I'm buying into a lot of the ideas that are being fed to me through different media sources, and her and I, this is embarrassing. I can't even remember her name right now. I'm having cognitive problems, but her and I formed over, about 2 years, this really cool friendship where she was an American. She married a man from Syria, and she was born and raised similar to me, Catholic, and she converted to Islam once, before they got married. And she had a lot of really interesting input about the faith that resonated with me, being that we had a very similar upbringing, right? And
Mm-hmm.
but it was interesting to get her perspective. She had told me, she said, I have never been happier. I said, that's interesting. You don't feel oppressed or regulated or limited. She goes, no, not at all. She was very happy with her decision. I mean, she could have just been saying that, who knows, but
But a lot
she
of a
seemed
lot of
happy.
men I know find it comforting. The rules are comforting. Yeah.
Well, yeah, it does. I mean, I'm not, again, I'm not versed enough on it to speak very intelligently, but I can imagine that it would relieve some of the temptation from men. I think. I don't know. I think the problem with somebody like me or somebody who's been raised in a similar culture as I have here in America, I think the problem that we have in the roadblock that you probably are facing with people like myself or others is the whole the bad press with certain pockets of Islam that are um, hyper exaggerated. You have the whole Sharia law, and you have all these things that with our culture over here. They'll reflect back on what they've heard on the news. Oh, they
Mm-hmm.
pushed this gay man off the top of a building. They've
But it doesn't
terrorism.
tell them to do that in the Quran, and it actually is from the
Right.
Talmud anyway. This throwing gay men off.
And you can go through the Bible, and I've done this before actually with somebody in a debate once, and you can go through the Bible, and there are very violent
36
periods.
capital offences in the Torah there are.
Yeah, in the Bible, in the Bible,
Mm.
the Old Testament was very violent. The New Testament had, I mean, it's I look at the Bible, the Quran, the Torah. These are I don't know if they should be taken as literal as they should be figuratively. I think that people mistake the teachings. My dad was a pastor, a youth pastor when I was growing up for the Christian church, but I was raised Catholic. It was really weird. But,
Mm.
you know, I think what I learned from him from a young age is to look at the stories in the Bible, okay, and the religious teachings as being just that, a teaching tool, not to look at them so literally and take everything as a historical record, right? I believe that the Bible was put in place to guide us in certain situations, and being that it's so old, these situations are um, not as relatable today to people now, and it's probably a good reason why people are losing their religion or losing faith in certain religious entities. But um, I think there's just people they fear what they don't understand, and they aren't willing to take the time to understand it or to listen. And that's the biggest problem we have with everyone. We all have common ground, right?
Yes, I think the views of certain people have become. I mean, even atheists. It's like the longer you've been doing something, the more likely it is to become sacred. It's like if somebody told you that what you thought wasn't what you thought, and you've been thinking it
Right.
for 50 years, and that's going to be hard to swallow.
Yeah, it is because we identify with those thoughts as people, right? Our minds, we create in our minds these characteristics about ourselves that become our identifiers, right? And those are what we form ourselves as people off of. We have this ego-based mind that creates this identity, and we tend to be, married to it, regardless of anything, and it's hard to change people. Maybe, Claire, you could get on the BBC if you rebranded it to secular religionism or something like that. you know maybe maybe you could do, maybe we need to do a little, you could do a bait and switch even, with the BBC, say I'd like to speak about gender politics, and things like that, and then just totally go on and do a whole different program.
Yeah.
That might work.
Yeah,
That might
I mean,
work.
I think that they actually don't want me on. It's like, if it's her, she can't come on to talk about anything. It's like, they know who I am, and
Oh,
they're
okay.
just not going to have me on, um, unless, the policy changes.
I
So,
see.
so
I
I mean that
see.
okay that's a feeling I got once I nearly was on TV, but it was an entirely unrelated matter, and then this disappearance that was requested was suddenly cancelled at the last minute. I can't be sure, but
Well, the
I,
BBC is a limited audience. I mean, maybe something like Al Jazeera or something like that would be better suited. And I think they have a broader reach, even.
yeah, yeah. I guess I mean I try to reach out to people, but I feel I'm kind of toxic or something. Um,
Telemundo might be a good option too.
which one?
Telemundo.
Oh, I don't know
If you
that
can
one.
speak,
What
they're
is
they're
it?
the Spanish. That's the Spanish speaking network.
Oh,
They have a very large audience as well. There's other options, Claire. There's other places you could go with this. No, I'm just teasing you. But yeah, yeah, it's a complicated world we live in. But
well, I mean, I would have thought, if they were doing their job properly, that they would, want to laugh about it, maybe. You know, it's like
maybe.
I don't care if you mock it, as long as you talk about it. But it seems that they're the kind of, well, we're not even going to mock it because that would give it the oxygen of publicity. So we can't even
Right.
do that, you know?
Right, right, right. I try and tell people that all the time. Like, look at these naysayers you have that are maybe making fun of you, or making jokes at your expense and stuff. You got to look at that as opportunity. That's opportunity to bring more people to your channel, more growth, more eyes on you. And out of that group, you might find, pluck a couple out who agree with what you're saying. Any type of exposure is good exposure when you're trying to get a message out to mass people, right?
Oh yeah,
Um,
yeah. I mean, I guess over the years I'm better at talking about it quickly so people get the idea nice and early, and not beating about the bush. But I think a lot of people just say, well, it's such a horrible idea. We're not going to talk about it. I'm not even going to tell anybody else I know about it. So
But if you break, I've told quite a few people about you actually, because if you break down your ideas about how certain things could run better and be more efficient and be more wholesome, and just we could be happier. I do agree with a lot of your points. I've only listened to maybe I don't know, a dozen or so live streams of yours. I participated in one in the chat briefly.
Yesterday,
The
thank
limited
you.
Yeah, yesterday, Domingo sent me the link yesterday because I really, what you were saying yesterday really resonates with me. The whole, we need to get back to a patriarchal society. And I agree with that. I don't think we work well under matriarchy. I don't think things are running well that way. So I agree with a lot of that. But the chat I was in prior to that, I don't know what, I can't remember the topic, but I was running out of characters in the chat box. And so it was cutting me off, and you kept telling me I was speaking an incomplete sentence. I was like, I was sitting there thinking like, oh my God, I'm running out of characters. I can't get a whole thought out. But it- there's been a lot of things that you've said, though, Claire, that I do strongly agree with. And I think people are afraid to talk about them. So I appreciate you
Thank you.
being brave and putting yourself out here to speak of these things, because I feel they're important. I think it's a good view that you have on the world in a lot of cases. I don't know if I can co-sign the slavery thing. You'd have to rebrand that.
You can always talk about it. They're not necessarily in approving tones. I think just getting the
Yeah.
message out, and people talking about it, it is good enough for me. It doesn't have to be in
That's
approving tones
okay.
at
You know,
all. You know,
well, but I think the idea behind it is to remove people from the welfare state, right? To remove
yes,
them from, yes,
workfare. I mean,
yes.
slavery is the most efficient form of workfare.
Right, right. That's true. But I mean, it's a problem. Generations get stuck in the system of just existing, right? And for handouts that you can barely survive on. It's even harder now, I'd imagine, with everything costing so much. Welfare doesn't give you barely enough to live. If even that, not out here, it doesn't. So, and with the massive immigration stuff, I'm really close to our southern border. So my community, there's a lot of blowback from the mass immigration we have happening, especially illegally. It really puts a massive strain on all of our systems here, our police, our
Yeah,
educational
yeah. I
system.
mean, I mean, it just upsets people, deeply because they see it, and of course they think their government doesn't care about them, and of course their government doesn't care about them,
hmm Well,
and
that's how it feels. That's how
yes,
it feels when, if you were in let's say you or me, and found myself in a situation where I had, for whatever reasons, let's say I lost everything, okay, and I found myself in a position where I wasn't sure where I was going to live or how I was going to feed my son, or any of these things. If I were to go to a social service agency here in my community, I would be very hard pressed to get any help. There's not a lot of services. There's qualifying factors that you have to meet or be under. So if I had any investments, if I owned my cars outright, or any type of equity that you had as a person counts against you. So there's no safety net. There's no social safety net here in place for the people who have maybe done okay for the majority of their life, who hit a road bump and then find themselves in despair in some way. And so, but if I were to run across the Rio Grande and come into a social services office in my community, immediately there would be accommodations made. There would be income. There would be health insurance. So I think people feel that way because they are disregarded in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways, it's really unfortunate. There's an imbalance, especially in California, for the people, the citizens. There's not a much of a safety net in place here for the people who pay into, the
I mean, the
services that.
unfortunate thing is that I think this happens in governments the world over. It's like if you give them a passport, they'll be voting for you for the rest of their lives. Maybe their children won't, but they will, because they're
hmm
grateful. They're grateful to you just for
hmm
giving them passports, and this goes right to the heart of the operation of democracy. Is this what you want? I mean, is this Because really, if you think about it, your government should be looking after its own citizens. It shouldn't be, selling passports to get voted in, because that is not a relevant consideration if you're governing in the national interest.
No, it's not. And you got to think about it too. If that's how you're building your voter base, you're not gonna, it's not a very solid base to build, right? It's very,
Yeah, because they
um,
hate you in the end. I mean, it's like for Labour in the UK, their own people won't vote for them because they know they've been completely betrayed by Labour, who only cares about unionised labour anyway. Unionised labour and, lovies and feminazis and, fashionable causes like that, but not for the
yeah.
ordinary working man.
That's why I think Donald Trump resonated with so many people that felt ignored with previous administrations. I think that's why Donald Trump had such a rabid
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
base.
people were saying we weren't even registered for the last 20 years, and he came along. It's like
Yeah.
and
He
I
spoke
could
to the unheard. He spoke to the unheard workers and
yes,
the middle. Yeah, it was pretty phenomenal to watch. I don't know where this country's going. We're in a bit of we've
but
kind of
but
dug ourselves into a
I wanted to say to all these Americans, it's like. This one party state idea, it's not something that Hitler or Mussolini or Franco or Mao thought of. It's actually Washington didn't approve of political parties, and for 18 years, America was a one-party state under the Federalist Party.
yeah. Well, I tell people all the time, look at, because the easiest way to control people is to make them feel that they've had a choice, right? I have my younger son is on the spectrum and he had a lot of problems with relinquishing control of his environment, right? So I had to create a system with him that where he still felt like he was in control, but his options were limited and they were my choices of options, So instead of saying to him,
You
"Hey,
were being
what
the
do you want
U.S.
for
guy.
lunch?" Yeah, yeah, I would say you can have chicken or you can have pasta for lunch. You pick one of the two. And I feel like that's what they've done to us, here in America. Okay, you can have Biden or Trump. Which one do you pick? But we really don't have that choice, right? Like we're really not. I don't think we really our votes are really even counted. I think it's all kind of show ponies and trick dogs and stuff that's going on so they can control us, right? Because if we knew the truth and the fact that we don't have much of a choice, then it would be just complete anarchy, I think. But yeah, I don't know. We're in a mess over here though, Claire. I don't know how this is going to go. I'm not too worried about it. It's nobody's gonna. I don't think we're all gonna die or anything, but I just think things are going to be incredibly complicated from here on out.
I've just let somebody in. I hope he's the real guy, but we might get porn bombed.
Yeah, well,
Why would I porn bomb?
I don't know, because I thought you might be a fake. But anyway, hello, Conops.
How you doing? Can you hear me well? Because
Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a
I can
new
hear you
microphone.
fine. I can hear you
Fantastic,
fine.
fantastic. So I see you guys were talking about feminism and the one-party state.
Yeah, I have a sensible lady agreeing with me. Wow, at
So
last.
you agree on the one party state, Tiffany, and the return of the patriarchy.
I do. I don't think things have been working very well under the system that we're existing in, and I feel that we need a change. I feel it's a more suitable system for what we are facing now, because I think
So,
we need
so,
some.
so what do you understand by patriarchy?
Well, that's a good question because I may not understand it very well. I believe in under the patriarchy, we are talking about, I don't know, why don't you explain it to me and see if I understand it properly?
Well, okay, so it basically means like rule by men, right? So the Quran has
Right,
this
right.
the Quran has this great verse, right? So if you fear disobedience from your wife, make sure she's not in your bed, chastise her
Right, right.
and beat her, right?
Well,
So
I don't think
you
that's
you
what,
you agree with
okay,
that?
so I understood it. So I understood it correctly then. So we're on the same page. And I feel that men are better suited in leadership roles than females. I feel that females genetically have a different way their mind processes things differently. The way they look at problems is different. Now, I'm not saying that we should oppress women and put them in, back in the kitchen with no shoes on and popping out babies necessarily. That's not, I'm not saying, I'm not promoting regression or oppression of women, but what I believe is that when it boils down to it, I believe the skill sets of men and women are tremendously different. And I think that I think we would operate better in a more patriarchal system than we are operating in now, because a lot of things have been lost with feminism. A lot of the core values that we've had. And I think the biggest sufferer of all of this, the biggest victim, is our children. I think our children are lacking a lot with having, um,
Yeah,
this
but I
this.
think you're making a lot of assumptions. For example, you say genetically women are different in leader positions than men. I don't know if you looked around the world and the female leaders that you've seen, but maybe you can look
I,
at famous female leaders like Margaret Thatcher, Golda Meir, Indira Gandhi. They were not, how would you say, women that were rather weak-minded. I would say the opposite.
I'm
Yeah,
not
but the
saying
They're
women
others
are
are
rather protective.
weak-minded.
terrible. There
Huh?
might be the occasional good one or okay one,
Okay,
but
okay. So
Right.
name a couple then that you think like famous world leaders in the past that you thought were terrible.
Theresa
Well,
May.
I can presently look at Nancy Pelosi. I mean,
Yeah.
she is a
Well, she's not
horrible.
really a leader, is she?
Well, she is out for me. I mean, I'm not sure where you're from, Conops, but for me, she is very much a leader and very much a
No, she's a what
decision.
was he Speaker of Parliament? I'm talking about presidents and people like that, right? So you can,
But
of
the
course, name
Speaker
the
of the House
occasional.
has a lot more power than even the president does, honestly.
Is that really true? I don't think so.
I
I mean,
I
like,
I would I would argue that.
oh,
Yeah.
really? Yeah, all right. But I think that's an interesting presumption. I don't think a lot of political scientists would agree with you, but okay.
I've got somebody new, which I'll allow in. Hello? Hello?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes?
Hi.
Hello? Do I know you from somewhere?
No, it's my first time here. I just ran into your channel a few minutes ago.
Oh, good. Good. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. So what's the topic?
We're just talking about slavery and one party state, how that would be better than an oligarchy that we have now, the corrupt oligarchy, political cartel that we have now. What country are you from?
Well, I live in Canada,
Uh-huh.
but my parents are from Pakistan.
Ah. And who's your
Yeah, you can.
avatar?
Yeah,
Pardon?
who's that? Who's that guy? Yeah.
Who's your avatar?
Sorry, is this a secret live? Like, are you guys not accepting guests?
We are.
No, no,
You're
no.
here.
Or you guys are just surprised that someone random came in?
Yeah,
No, no, no.
we're
Like,
interested in you and asking you all sorts of questions. That's all.
Is this an online Freemason meeting? What's going on?
Yes.
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt, guys. You guys
No,
can
no, no, no,
continue.
no, not at all. I was actually wondering about you because you were originally from Pakistan, right? So you experienced Sharia, right? Or
Well,
parts of it, let's say.
Well, I experienced Islamic culture. I know the inner workings of it.
Mm-hmm.
When I was younger, we immigrated to Canada, so I can't say I've lived in an Islamic country as an adult.
Mm-hmm. Would you
But
want to live in it?
hell no.
See, Claire, you have lots of souls to win.
Well,
That's an emphatic no.
okay. So you've never, have you been back to Pakistan?
No, I haven't actually.
Okay. Okay. So his perspective would be a typical Western perspective of shithole Muslim countries that he wouldn't want to ever visit. So,
I think you're
I
doing
mean,
a lot.
it's not my
Are
purpose
you a
to
Muslim?
turn Western countries into the shithole Muslim countries that you're always talking about, Conops. I'm talking about the social conservatism and the patriarchy that would be restored.
Well, the patriarchy was restored by a Pakistani leader called Zia-ul-Haq, right? That didn't go very well. I mean,
That was a long
No,
time
he
ago. I
destroyed the
didn't know
country.
what he did. Um,
He destroyed the country.
yeah, but
He destroyed the social fabric of the country.
okay, that was in the 70s, wasn't it?
1978. Where was it?
Yeah,
79.
I think
you can talk about, some shithole dictator for some
Oh,
shithole country. Yeah,
don't be
and
so
sneer at
terrible.
it and
Don't
say
insult the
it's all,
Pakistanis.
okay, I mean, they shouldn't have a shithole democracy then. They should just dump the
problem
shit
was that
out of
no, the
democracy
problem was
and maybe be
no,
more, well, like a one-party state. I mean, China's
well,
doing okay.
no. This is what happened. I mean, Zia-ul-Haq introduced a one-party state, basically.
So,
And it became a shithole country.
no,
Afterward, it was pretty okay.
Wasn't it a shithole country before?
No.
no. It wasn't. It wasn't.
Okay, so what did he do that was so typically Islamic?
He introduced Islamic law to rather
Okay,
serious
like
degrees.
which one?
He invited all these Afghani refugees that brought their AK culture, that they brought their violent Islamic culture to Pakistan, and who also brought drugs, such as what do they produce there? Heroin into Pakistan, and also he implemented strict Sharia law. So and that created hell for our minorities, who are diminishing to this day. So he pretty much destroyed the social fabric of the country.
Well,
in
the
many
social
aspects.
fabric is still there, isn't it? And he didn't do it because he was Muslim. He did it because he was a corrupt politician.
No, he was a very pious man. He was a very pious man, but
He was a strict Islam. He was a practicing Muslim.
Okay, well, I'll have to read up about Zia al-Haq then. But
Like, he
took all his-
about
you're
everything.
basically saying, anything any Muslim does, it's going to end up in shit. But anyway, Conops is our resident Islamophobe, so well, you should expect everything he says to be,
stop with the ad hominem,
Islamophobic
Claire.
shit.
Stop
There's
with
no
the ad
such
hominem.
thing
I
as
mean,
an
this is
Islamophobe.
all
There's no
you're
such thing.
about. You have nothing positive to add except that everything's going to turn to shit, and we might as well enjoy it. I mean, what's
so-
your thing, Conops?
So, Tiffany, what do you feel about the word Islamophobia? Islamophobia. Do you think it's a good word? Do you think it's a effective word? Do you think it's a word that covers something that is real?
Perfectly describes you, Conops.
Well,
Islamophobia, I think it's well, I don't think the word is very useful. Like, I wouldn't want, people to be. Hold on one second. You bear with me one second here. I'm backing on my driveway. Islamophobia, I think it's a little bit. I think it is a Western way of expressing their ignorance and their fear of something that they don't fully understand. Now, don't get me wrong here. I'm not a pro-Islam person. But I also don't think that we should compartmentalize every person who is, practicing Islam into the same category as some bad seeds, because if you look at it, I mean, you could pick them out of every religion, right? There's not only bad people in Islam, there's bad Christians, there's bad Jewish people. I mean, there's bad people all over the place. I think the culture is diverse with Islam depending on your location and where you're at. So Islamic people in the United States are going to be a lot different than Islamic people in Pakistan, for instance, right? With the way they practice their religion. So I think the compartmentalization of everybody into one basket with the religion is kind of incorrect, right?
yeah, well, none of us are doing that. That's not, I think, the issue. The issue that it is a conversational stopper. So, for example, if you call somebody a homophobe, right? If you say, for example,
Oh, you're wondering how. Okay, I see what you're saying. Well, it's like calling people a pedo online. You know, typically people do
well,
that
yeah,
when.
it would be more say like transphobe, for example. If you say, for example, I don't want my children to be changed into women if they're men, for example, right? And then that
Right.
makes you a transphobe right now. So I think these phobias, these neologisms, are conversation stoppers because they prevent us talking about the real issues. And I still think there's a real issue with the lack of modernization in Islamic law. I still think women have a really subservient
Modernizing
position.
it into what? What do you want to
Well, into
modernize it
something
to?
acceptable without slavery, without wife beating,
No, no,
without stoning,
I was
maybe.
just saying, that slavery is necessary for workfare.
Claire, why don't you clean my toilet and do it for free? I can
Why,
feed you.
why? Why would I? You gonna
Well,
pay me?
because you are in favor of slavery. Why
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
you
Well, can you
bite the bullet?
afford me? Can you afford me?
Absolutely,
And
Claire. Of course I can afford you.
really,
If you, yeah, if I just have to
you're
feed you, I can definitely
really.
afford you.
What can you
Kind of.
afford? What can you afford to marry your girlfriend and be a father?
Sweetheart,
Well, I mean, the reason
you
why
are
you
cheaper.
prefer,
Your
you prefer
upkeep.
your
If you clean my
Islamophobia shit
toilet, if
is
you clean my
because you
house,
have no intention of becoming a married
why
father.
didn't you
You're
change?
just
Why
gonna
didn't you change
sire
the
bastards
subject?
and have cheap
Why did
sex.
you change the subject?
No,
Why did you
no,
change the
no.
subject?
Well, we were
I was
talking.
just asking you. You, I just said you could be my slaves. You can clean my toilet, and I'll feed you. That's my deal.
Well,
What
why
if
would
you're
you?
so pro
I
No,
think.
slavery?
no,
Why
no,
don't you take
no,
it up?
because you don't have any money. I know you're laden with student debt. You have no hope for the future. You have no
Sweetheart, I have enough
capacity or
money to. I
intention or
have enough money
prospect
for
God
of
damn,
you
was it a
becoming
walk
to
a
of
feed
married
you and to
father,
clean my
which is
toilet.
why you have your nihilistic view and you want to sneer at anyone who has children or wants to become
Oh, Claire,
parents.
stop with the
Yes,
ad
yes,
hominem and
because
the subject's changing.
no, because you have
Connops, I have
nothing
a
but your
question for you.
libtard shit. Okay, why don't you
Why you can
stuff
also
your own head down your stinky toilet?
you
Why are you
could do
so
that, but why do
offended?
I think the question is, so why is it that you let the word affect you so much that it gets you off topic? I think we all have a choice in offense, right? So we all choose how much words are offending us or not. We have a choice in how much we let them affect us.
No, I agree.
So perhaps maybe there's something more going on there with the fact that the word offends you and it rattles you to the point where you're off topic, possibly. Just,
He's not off
just my.
topic. He's still talking about his favourite subject.
He he was saying though that when you call people
But it doesn't
certain
end the
words,
conversation anyway. I mean,
yeah.
it doesn't. I mean, people will just, they will double down with their Islamophobia or whatever. But I mean, the subject is about Islam anyway. So,
Yeah,
you
but
know,
why, Claire? So if people have a legitimate criticism of a religion or some
yeah, yeah.
aspects of
No,
religion,
no,
if I say, for example, I don't like the caste system in Hindu society, does that make me a Hindu phobe? And should I be castigized for
yeah,
that? Do you
well,
think I
nobody
hate
cares. Nobody cares about nobody cares about the
every?
Hindus, right?
Why do you have to
They're a
interrupt
fallen
me?
civilization. Westerners don't feel frightened about these Hindus.
But
They
that
don't
is a
care about
subject.
Can I
them. They're
answer?
not
Can
scared.
I answer a
They're
question?
scared of Muslims and Islam.
I think you're just really unable to handle me for
No,
some
no,
reason. I
I
don't
can
know.
handle it because I'm just
No, you
tired
just
of your
starting spurting and
Islamophobic shit.
screaming all the time.
We're just talking about stuff and you have to bring up Zia al Haq.
Yeah, because you didn't know him. That's
Can I
okay.
Yeah,
answer the
I've heard
question?
of him. I know he died in the 70s, but he's completely irrelevant. You just sort of decided to think of any Muslim who happened to have bad press, and you throw it at us. And, yeah, I mean, what's your solution? Everything's fine in Holland, is it?
Can
It's much better than in Pakistan, I would say.
can, can,
Yeah.
can I answer
Fine,
the
don't
question?
go to Pakistan then.
No. You should go to Pakistan
No,
because
no, I
they
don't want to
introduce
go.
your
I don't
Quranic
want to turn
laws. Why
anything.
not?
No, I don't want to go to Pakistan at the moment.
No.
Perhaps
I
one of
know you
these
don't.
days
I
I
know you
will.
don't, Claire. You
I've
know what
heard
you
there's
want to do? You want to sit comfortably in the West and then complain about how bad the West is without having
Got
the
him.
strength of your convictions and move to a country
No,
that
this is
implements
not about
laws that
me
are similar to the
moving
ones you
to some
advocate
Muslim
in the
country.
country.
You know this is not about me moving into.
Hey, spiritual. Can I answer that question
Yeah, sure.
about Islamophobia? Now that term it's a nonsensical term, and it's used by liberals to to um to freeze any criticism of the Islamization of their society.
I'm not a liberal, am I?
Well, you use your
I mean, the term.
words.
Yeah, am I not allowed to use it when I see blatant examples of it?
Yeah, but you haven't really defined the terms, right?
I've defined it. It's an irrational hatred and fear of it.
There's a completely irrational reasons for to hate Islam, to fear Islam. Do you want to live in a society where your testimony is worth half that of a man, lashing for fornication,
No.
stoning for adultery,
Okay. I want to deal with that
amputating
point.
the
I want
hands
to
of
deal with
thieves?
that point because actually the Quran just says it's for loan agreements. It's for the witnessing of loan agreements. It doesn't mean that a woman's testimony in everything is worth that of half a man.
All Sharia law courts
Sharia
disagree
law.
with
That's
you, but all right.
go take that up with the scholars at
Yeah,
at
I
Cairo,
will. That's
in
why.
Medina,
That's
in
why I
Mecca.
created secular Quranism because I don't like their stupid shit. All right.
I think you're trying to sanitize Islam,
Me,
which is an
I'm not
honorable cause.
sanitizing it. I'm just going by the book. But I've noticed how these Muslims have distorted their own religion for centuries.
So
That is
Saudi
why they
Arabians,
suffer.
the Arabs don't know anything about Islam, but we got Claire, who knows everything about
Yeah,
Islam, who knows the
do.
right
Actually,
version
I
of Islam.
do. And they distorted. The Wahhabis distorted. They put things in that weren't there. So yeah, I know
Yeah,
that.
so Claire's command of the Arabic language is impeccable. It's
Well, yeah, I know what the Quran says.
yeah. You can speak
Yeah, I
Arabic.
do, I do. I think I've delighted me for long enough. I mean, if all you're gonna do is
Oh,
yeah,
Claire, I wish you taught Islamic studies in Mecca, Saudi Arabia. We would have a better world.
I'm sure if I did everything, it would.
What if you removed Islam out of her ideas and thoughts about how to better society? Let's say we take Islam completely out of it. Is she that off base? I don't believe so. No. Again, I was raised Catholic. I'm not a supporter or naysayer necessarily of Islam. I've studied it a little bit. There's things I don't agree with certain pockets and the way they practice the faith. However, I don't see where her ideas are all that radical or necessarily even bad ideas when it comes to certain restoration of our cultures to a more family-based, patriarchal type of society. I think if let's put it this way to simplify it for the people like me who are listening to this, right? If we had a family nucleus that is the way I believe it was supposed to be, where you have the father who works, he does the things, the mother stays home, takes care of the children, is focused on raising the children, doing things in that manner, I don't think you're limiting women or you're oppressing women from what they need to be or they should be doing. I mean, since, the whole idea of telling women that they are lesser people than men because they stay home and take kids, it's just absurd. Our children are our future. Our children are the people who are going to be leading these countries in the future. We need to take care of them properly. We need to raise them properly. When you have this society that's you have genders in competition with one another about who's the most powerful, who's the biggest money maker, who's this and who's that, the children get put in the background. If we don't have an importance in keeping families together, keeping the fathers and the mothers married, keeping that structure and that creation of this family, if we don't deem that as being important. We have children being raised by one parent. It's impossible. It's impossible existence to be successful in, right?
Yeah, because each subsequent generation will be worse than the other. Harapan,
Yes.
are you a father? Harapan?
Oh, sorry, you were talking to me. No, I'm not a father. No,
Do you want to be?
I haven't decided yet.
Have you converted to Christianity?
No, I'm an agnostic.
Why does your name say born again? Born again Harapan?
Oh, it's just it's a long story. It's a long story. It's nothing to do with religion.
Right. Oh,
No,
okay.
I'm not a Christian. I'm not a Christian.
Who's that avatar?
Oh, that's my avatar. That's it's an 18th century Punjabi Sufi poet,
What's his name?
Bulleh Shah.
Right. Why'd you
No,
like him?
pardon?
Why'd you like him?
Oh, because he first he was very influential in the Punjabi language. He spread the Punjabi language. Prior to him, the literary language of the people in the Punjab region was Persian. But when he came about, people became more proud of speaking Punjabi, the local indigenous language, and also he was a very secular man of his time. He was very ahead of his time. He accepted all people, all religions, and
He was a
he
Sikh,
spread.
was he?
No, he was a Muslim. He was a Muslim Sufi saint,
Okay.
and he's very revered in the Punjab region. Even Hindus, Sikhs, Muslims, they all sing his songs, sing his poetry.
And are you in your 20s?
Yes.
Right. So I suppose your thoughts are far from raising a family, which is presumably why you don't really care
Well,
about these
well,
things.
the pressure is on to get married, but as of now, no, I'm more focused on my career and whatnot.
Was your mother home to take care of you when you were young, you and your siblings?
Yes, she's a housewife,
Okay.
full-time housewife. Yes, hasn't
And your
worked a day in her
friends
life.
that you went to school with, were your friends' mothers, were they all housewives too and there to take care of their children, not working jobs?
Yeah,
Most of them?
95%. Yeah.
Okay.
See, there has to be a balance. I understand what you're saying, where the society is going, where Western civilization is going, but Islam is not. I wouldn't say Islam is the answer because that too is too radical. Um, there has to be a balance, and I don't think we need religion necessarily to bring back the patriarchy.
Why
I
not?
think there just has to be a cultural change. I think
How
look
are
at
you going to
America
get the cultural change without changing the law?
without changing the law.
Yeah, that's how culture is formed. Culture is what the law allows to happen, and that's a culture.
Yes, I agree, but the society's consciousness is what really dictates culture,
Yeah,
and
and the consciousness
society's
is dictated
consciousness,
by what? The consciousness is dictated by the mass media.
mass media, by academia, by Jewish elites. Sorry, I dropped the J word. Sorry. By the elites. Um, yeah, I mean, how can we? I mean, the media. There's a monopoly on the media. There's a monopoly on academia, and
But the
I don't know. It's going to be
monopoly
hard to
is
get out of.
liberal, isn't it? Is that
Yes,
what?
of course.
So what do you
Yes,
mean?
definitely. There's a cultural Marxist element as well. Um,
Yeah, but the culture is liberal, and when we talk about liberal, we mean a culture of sexual liberation from marriage and parenting, right? So
yes, materialism and yeah.
What about the elderly in your family? Are they, do they live with your parents? Are they cared for and
Oh yeah, yeah. The elders are
right.
cared for. Yes. We don't in our
See,
culture we don't believe in senior homes, old homes
right,
at all.
right.
We detest that. Um, yeah,
Now, under
that's
this matriarchy that we're living though here
that's
in America, we have absolutely no concern for our elderly.
Yeah,
When
yeah.
family members grow old, they're placed in care homes because most of the reason is because you've got both parents who have to work.
Hmm.
Right? There's nobody to care for them if they were to move into the home with their children. So across the board, we're failing a lot of people with the way we're operating. We're failing our children. We're failing our elderly family members. There's a fundamentally just horrible breakdown of the family units here in
Yeah, I
America.
agree. But
Yeah,
America, I mean, these countries have ceased to be countries. They're more like economic zones, right? Canada's an economic
correct,
zone. It's not even a country
correct,
anymore.
correct. It's more of I agree with you on that, and that's
It's
a problem.
it's like there needs to be constant production for the society to, sustain itself. If the indigenous, white Americans or white Canadians are not having children, they're going to import millions of foreigners into the country. So there has we live in the capitalist system. It's just it needs that wood, to keep going, the fire to keep burning, and the
That's
wood
correct.
is the people.
That's correct. But we're pushing ourselves into a corner where the people it's going to be less and less, right? We're not producing quality people anymore because we have children raising themselves. We have family units broken down. We have our children are having to take care of themselves, make their own choices without guidance because there's no parents home.
I think I
It's
think I think a good solution, especially because a lot of these ills are happening to the white Americans. I think you have to look at communities like the Mormons, the Amish, who have the solid family unit, the nuclear family intact, and they have plentiful children, and also they have retained their Christian morals and traditions. I think instead of ridiculing these people, you should actually be learning from them.
I think the Amish are amazing. The Amish have amazing lifestyles. I think they live very, very nice lifestyles. I mean, every pocket of people is going to have their problems. The Amish aren't excluded from that, but I do think they live in a way that should be an example to a lot of us out here. I agree with you on that. They're interesting people, hard workers.
Yeah, and the
Um,
Mormons as well. The Mormons as well. Regardless of you think they're a kooky, their beliefs are kooky. They
I
have
mean,
they, they have the family unit intact.
they do. I mean, and I can say, I mean, as far as things being kooky, I went to a Catholic mass a few years back. I hadn't been in quite some time, and I have to say, I felt a little kooky in there. Something that I was raised in, and was pounded in my head. I was going through mass and standing up and sitting down and accepting the body of Christ, and it all felt a little kooky to me. So, everything can be everything can be looked at kind of as being different. But yeah, I think there's a lot to be said in these areas. You guys, I'm gonna sign off, and my little boy just came home from school. But Claire, it's nice speaking with you. Thank you for having me on.
Thank you for
Appreciate it.
coming on. It's been great having you. I hope we can talk again.
Thank you so much. And take Hairpin is nice, or whatever your name is. Nice meeting you too.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
All
Take
right.
care.
Take
Okay,
care.
bye bye.
Bye.
So Claire, are you a Muslim
No,
or a convert to Islam?
no. I'm
So why do
agnostic.
oh, you're an agnostic. So why do you take up for Islam?
Well, because I think it's time for the West to have a functioning moral system because they haven't got one.
Well, why not Christianity? Why not Hinduism? Why not Buddhism? Why not Zoroastrianism? Why Islam?
Because why would I choose the not so good ones? I mean,
Oh, so you do
Hinduism
have a
is
bias.
idolatry, Christianity is idolatry.
So you're saying it's? I mean, I think you're an undercover Muslim then, because is not Islam idolatry?
No, it's not. Where do you get your weird ideas from? You're actually a Muslim, but you say, well, you say things about Islam that is,
I'm not a
connots
Muslim.
would say. So,
No, no, I'm not. I'm not a Muslim.
right. But you kind of like LARPing as a Muslim. You're some Sufi saint avatar person.
No, that's just this man who's on my avatar is a secular man. I mean, he was a Muslim, but he espoused secular beliefs and ideology. That's why, and he's a cultural figure. It's not about religion. He's a cultural figure.
Okay.
Did you say I was LARPing as a Muslim? That's funny.
Well, yeah, and then you're saying, oh, you're from Pakistan, but kind of okay. You don't like Pakistan. You would never go. You never go
I would
there.
go. I would go if it's safer. I would go if it's more developed. But I have no plans on going anytime soon.
So, your accent isn't quite Canadian, is it?
Well, I'm not a native of Canada, so it's going to be a little. It's not going to be the same, right? I'm not going to talk like
Yeah, you're
someone
not going
from.
to talk like Canadian, but so where did you kind of where were you before you came to Canada?
Well, I was when we were 5, 6. We immigrated to Canada. Prior to that, I was in Pakistan.
All right, right. Oh,
So don't hand me over to the Pakistani authorities, please, because
because
it's going to be off with my head.
right. And
So
you obviously had a bad experience there. You don't seem to like it. You know.
no, I think it's a backward ideology. I think it's a total. It's
You prefer
what should I?
Christianity.
No, I don't prefer any of these Abrahamic Semitic religions. I think they're all Semitic mythology at the end of the day.
Well,
If you
everything's
want to,
mythology like Hinduism and everything else. So,
but at least I mean, I'm not going to go into another, a culture to find God. I mean, we have our own gurus and we have our own saints and sages. So
you're a Sikh, are you?
no, I'm a Punjabi Pakistani Muslim background.
Okay, so when you talk about gurus, I immediately think you know only Hindus talk about gurus, right?
Sikhs have gurus too. I mean, it's a generic Sanskrit word meaning teacher, I think.
Right.
Yeah.
So I
So
don't
you're,
know. I find your attitude, a little kind of mixed up. On the one hand, you say you're from there, but you speak with such contempt for it.
I mean, I do have contempt for Islam. I wish Islam never came to the Indian subcontinent. I make videos. You can check out my videos. I have my face on there.
Right. So
You should come on my channel and have a debate with me.
okay. Well, what's your channel again? It's called whatever you're called.
It's just my username.
Okay.
So you're from England, ma'am,
Yeah.
and so you don't mind the Islamization of your society. You don't you
I'm trying to think of what it might mean when you say that. Are you saying it's stuffed with Muslim immigrants or what? We have curry houses. People are talking about Islam a lot.
Mhm.
But I mean, I don't see sort of mosques mushrooming up.
Mhm.
So I don't see visible signs of it unless you're talking about brown people.
You don't see the mosques, the people, the women in hijab. Doesn't that is it
In
England if
certain
they
parts
become the
of London, yeah.
pardon?
In certain parts of London, yeah, I guess you would see more of that than other parts of London.
Do you feel
Other
comfortable
parts
with
of the
that?
country. I'm used to it.
Hmm.
They've been around for a while.
Okay. Interesting. So you said Christianity is idolatry. All the other, except Islam, is not idolatry, right?
Yeah, and Judaism.
And Judaism. So you're saying Christians dropped the ball somewhere?
They what?
Did they drop the ball somewhere?
I
They
don't know what
became
you're talking.
idolatry. They became idolaters somehow. The Christians.
Yeah, of course they worship a Jew on a stick.
Mm. Okay. So you're not.
You see
He was
them
not the
pray
Messiah.
to idols of Jesus and Mary, don't you?
I mean, is Allah more? Does Allah and Muhammad make more sense than a Jew hung from a
Muslims don't
cross?
worship Muhammad, it's like it's really weird. What you say about Islam, like you know nothing about it at all.
I know way more about
I
Islam
mean,
than you.
why do you think Muslims worship Muhammad?
Muslims worship the stone in Mecca, don't they? Don't they kiss it?
They don't think it's God.
But they still revere it.
Well, I mean, there are lots of sacred objects. All religions have sacred objects, but they
And
don't
you know,
think it's God.
Allah was one of the gods of pre-Islamic Arabia. You do know that, right?
No, Allah is the God, the only God, the Abrahamic God. Yeah, I know
There's
that.
Allah, and then there was lower gods under him. Allah had daughters. Allah has daughters. Al Uzza, Manat. You're not familiar with that?
I know people say that. But the
Satanic
point is,
verses.
pardon?
The satanic verses from Salman Rushdie.
So he's an Islamic authority now, is he?
I'm not saying that.
I
But
don't
are
know
you
what are
familiar
you
with his
saying?
work? I'm trying to illustrate that there are references of Allah having daughters.
Well, by Salman Rushdie.
Not Salman Rushdie. Where did he get his work from? People prior to him.
Well, I guess all kinds of crap here and there. So he can put it in his book to mock Muslims, and
Okay, so why don't you just convert to Islam?
No, I don't need to convert because it's important for because I am promoting secular Quranism, which
No
is a
such thing.
moral and legal political system.
It's a legal system as well, right? Islam.
Yeah,
It comes with a legal system. So that's not secularism?
well, it's secular in the sense that I'm not Muslim, and it is for non-Muslims because it's for Western countries that are not Muslim. In particular,
Okay.
Western
Do you
countries that are without a functioning moral system.
Okay. All right. You're an interesting person.
Thank you. So, how did you find me?
Um, I think I found you under a video I was watching. You commented. Literally have like 5 minutes before I got on your stream. I saw your username. I didn't even read your comment, but I thought your username was pretty interesting. So I clicked on your username to your channel, and I saw you were going live, ironically, and then I just got on out of
Ah,
nowhere.
so you must have met me on Black Pigeon Speaks, right?
I think so. Yeah. I was watching that video, and I was just scrolling down the comments, and then I saw your username. I didn't really check out your channel, but I just saw you were going live, and I just hopped on.
Yeah. That all fits out. Your views and.
I don't think I want to articulate my views better. I think we should have another dialogue
Sure.
on a certain topic, and then we can proceed from there, because I think this is going all over the place.
What topic were you thinking of?
Is Islam idolatry? I think that would be a good topic.
Sure.
Or is Islam morally superior to Western secularism?
Okay. You want me to come on your channel?
Pardon?
Did you want me to join you on your channel too?
Yes. I do a live stream on. I don't know what your timetable is, but we can make it work. I'm very flexible at the moment.
Okay.
All right. Then I'm gonna leave.
All
Nice
right, then.
talking to you.
Nice talking
And
to you.
we'll talk
What shall I
later.
call you? What shall I call you?
Just call me Harapin. That's fine.
What does that mean?
That was Harappan is an inhabitant of a very ancient city in the Punjab region.
Haha. Okay. I'll try and
Okay.
remember that.
All right, Claire.
Bye bye.
Take it easy.
You too.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye. Alrighty, I'll have a look at my chat. Always nice to meet a new person. Quite a few old faces. All right. Nothing much in the chat. I'm very pleased to have met Tiffany, and I guess we can all look forward to seeing me and Harapan on his channel. Thank you all for coming by, and talk to you again soon. Bye bye.